Alright guys, welcome to part 23 of Project E55 ASL, and why am I filming the intro inside a hotel room? Because, well, quite a lot has happened in the past 5 days and I haven't had too much time to upload all the videos from it, so now I'm trying to catch up with all the uploads. This first video is going to be about the E55 ASL's first track day, which was at Willow Springs, but unfortunately this track day did not go too well because, well, not because of anything to do with the track or the car. Both the track was amazing and the car should have done amazing, but it's just that the weather turned extremely south. It started raining last minute and it was really cold, so I couldn't get the tires up to temperature. And obviously being in a lightweight car with slick tires on a really wet track is the recipe for hydroplaning, and that's exactly what was going on most of this track day. So yeah, unfortunately this one wasn't the best, but the track day right after this one was Laguna Seca, and that actually did happen on a perfectly dry track, and I did get quite a lot done on that track day, like setting up the suspension, monitoring tire temperatures, also logging all the data from all the different things on the engine, and yeah, that was a really positive track day, but I'll leave all that for the next video. This first video is going to be about Willow Springs. So yeah, this is how everything went. It is 5 AM early morning and it's time for the E55 ASL's first track day. We have to take it to Willow Springs really soon, but we've already ran into our first problem. Someone's actually blocked our trailer in. There's a car parked over here, there's a car parked, well, this is our car parked on the side. There's also cars parked behind it. So it's going to be really difficult to take this trailer out, turn it, and then hopefully hitch it up with the R-Class so we can actually take it to the track. Okay, after a few attempts of trying to move the trailer back, we were not strong enough to actually turn the trailer. We can move it forwards and backwards in a straight line, but it's almost impossible to turn. So our solution to this is to tie this ratchet strap to the R-Class, and Peter's going to drive the R-Class forward, and that is hopefully going to turn this trailer. Alright Peter, drive it slowly. It's moving. Keep going. Alright, stop. Now we can just roll it back manually and then we'll be good to go. Once the whole trailer situation was sorted, it was a 2-hour drive to Willow Springs Raceway, which is a track located in the middle of all these mountains pretty much. So it's a pretty scenic track with a lot of elevation changes and a lot of long sweeping corners. It's actually the fastest track in California. So it's actually a really fun track, but definitely not too fun in these types of weather conditions when it's raining and it's really cold. But anyways, I had this track day booked for a really long time, so the thing about these track days is that you can't cancel them. Once you book them, you literally have to attend the track day. That's why I had to go no matter what the weather was like. The only day in California when the weather is crap, and that has to be the day when we took this car out to the track. But anyways, we're here. The car's here. I just gotta go to a driver's meeting at 8 o'clock. It's actually really cold today. It's actually only 6.5 degrees right now. Let's hope the weather picks up later in the day. But yeah.
Mandatory driver's meeting in about 10 minutes upstairs. Mandatory if you're on the track.
Alright, well thank you all for coming. The track is a little bit wet today. It's been working very hard, so it's sweating. It's going to dry up real fast out there, but it will be cold. Give a few laps.
Peter's definitely not having a good day in the rain.
Yo, I'm out of here.
Come on, just wait. Come on, man. Dude.
This is a serious issue. I'm going to go to Beverly Hills where it's warmer while you freeze yourself racing around this track. Because look, his hand's shaking. His hands are shaking.
My hands are literally
That's
shaking.
how cold he is.
Because I'm wearing shorts.
And I'm supposed to be here a spectator? No.
Come on, man. You can't leave now.
No, not now, but in a bit.
So with Peter definitely not feeling too optimistic about the weather, it was up to me to get in the car and to try to make the most out of whatever I could do on this track day. So my original plan for this track day was to set up thermal cameras and look at the tires and see what they were doing just to get the suspension settings right. So basically change the camber and caster and also the toe angle accordingly to get all those angles right so the tires could make proper contact with the road surface. But the problem was that with all this rain and cold weather, I could not even get the tires up to temperature, so all that plan completely went out the window. So instead I decided to just use this track day to drive the car and to learn the car a little better. So this was actually my first time taking this car out on track, and well, this was also the car's first time ever being driven around the track, and well, this was also my first time driving around Willow Springs. I had never driven on this track before. but I had played this track in video games before, so I did know all the racing line and everything. So I guess for this first lap, I'll just use it to show you guys around the track, show you guys all the different corners of Willow Springs, and also talk about what I thought about the car driving it on track for the first time. So for the first corner on Willow Springs is turn 1, which is a left-hand corner, and it's a fairly, well, low speed, I would say, compared to this track, because all the other corners on this track are pretty high speed. Right after turn 1, there's a bit of a straight, and then you get into turn 2. Turn 2 is a really long right-hand corner. It's almost like a never-ending corner, and it's a pretty high-speed corner too, and it's also cambered, so you can carry quite a lot of speed through this corner. This is what is called the double apex corner. So first you hit one apex, and then by the exit you try to get really close to the inside line again, and then you go on the power and accelerate to the outside of the track. But for my car, this was really tricky getting proper acceleration out of this turn, because my car was pretty much slipping in any gear I put it in. So just because it was wet and the car has so much power that it was impossible to put the power down in these conditions. Right after turn 2 though, you go through this bit of a straight, and then you get to this really slow section of the track, which is turns 3 and 4. And there's a bit of an uphill section over here. You have to stay really wide on the track, and then you try to hit a really late apex on this corner, because right after that there's this bit of a downhill section that you can carry quite a lot of speed through this one. But right after this though, you have to go really early on the brakes to brake into this corner, which is, it's a little difficult stopping the car in this corner because it is downhill when you're going on the brakes. And then after this one, there's a bit of this uphill section again, which right after which there's this really long straight, and you can carry quite a lot of speed through this straight, because the turn that is coming after this straight, turn 8, that's also a really high speed corner, so you don't need to brake too much for that corner. In these wet conditions, I wasn't going too fast through this turn just because my car was sliding all over the place, but I believe in dry conditions you can pretty much go like 200 kilometers per hour through this corner, so it's a really high speed corner. And that's really what I like about Willow Springs. It's a combination of really high speed corners and also fairly low speed corners, so it gives you an opportunity to test your car in all different conditions. Like, you can test how the aerodynamics are working in these high speed corners, and then you can also test the mechanical grip, how that's working in the low speed sections of the track. But of course, in conditions like these, none of that was actually working, because there was no mechanical grip to begin with, because the tires were so cold. And also down the straight, one thing I noticed was that my car was hydroplaning above a certain speed. Like if I went over, I believe it was 160 or 170, after that the car would literally lose all traction altogether. Like it almost felt like it was on ice or something. So that's why I was trying to keep the speeds fairly low going down the straights. Like I would lift off after a certain point, because it could have been fairly dangerous if the car started hydroplaning down the straight. Like it could have spun out literally just going down the straight. Also talking about my initial impressions about the car driving it for the first time around the track. So, well, these conditions were really wet, so it's not like I had any opinion about the car really, but the first thing I felt was that the steering was extremely responsive. Like it would give really good feedback even in these wet conditions. The car was not difficult to control. Like every time it would go into an oversteer, it was extremely easy to correct it, just because there's so much feedback in the steering wheel. It really makes the car easy to drive. After doing 2 laps around the track, I decided to push the car a bit more for the 3rd lap, just trying to get some heat into the tires, because the tires were extremely cold at this point and they weren't even working in the bed. So I thought maybe if I push it a bit more I might make some progress, but that was definitely not such a good idea, because this is what happened next. So yeah, I locked up the rear wheels and I spun out off the track and literally caused the first yellow flag of the day. So that was a really embarrassing thing, but luckily the car did not get stuck on the sand or anything. I was able to drive the car back on track and make it back to the pits. Okay, I came back in after like about 3 laps really. I literally just only did 3 laps on the track and then I crashed. This car is, I think, a bit too much for my driving skills right now. But anyways, yeah, the goal for the next session is I've looked over the car. Luckily there was no damage this time going off the track, so that's really good. I hope it stays that way. I really don't want to crash the car. So that's why I'm going to be taking it easy for the next session and everything. Talking about the next session, it was pretty much the same story. It was still raining and it was still really cold, so the tires were still not getting up to temperature and the car was still slipping all over the place. But this time I decided to put a camera on the front suspension just to see that how the front suspension was moving, just to make sure that I wasn't running into any bottom out or the suspension reaching max extension, because both those things are bad. If you're bottoming out your suspension too much, then your car will be bouncing around. If you're reaching max extension, then the spring will not be doing any work at that point. So the better way to do it is to have suspension position sensors and then log those values so you know what the position of your suspension is at all times. But of course I did not have suspension position sensors on this car, so the easier way for me was to just put cameras on the spring so I could see what position the spring was at. And yeah, the results were actually pretty positive. The suspension was neither reaching max extension nor was it bottoming out. It was also cool to see how the suspension position changed as the car picked up speed. This is obviously because of front downforce. As the car goes faster down the straight, you can actually see the spring compressing more and more. So yeah, that was actually pretty cool to see the downforce at work. Okay, 2 sessions in and the car is definitely not liking the weather at all. It was raining in the second session as well, and I just pulled in after a few laps because there was no point. I was trying to follow the Corvette, and no, the car wasn't even catching up to a Corvette, so that definitely means that, yeah, these tires are not even working in the vet, and I was holding up everyone. That's why really I didn't want to continue that session, because the car was sliding all over the place. If I tried to drive it any faster, it was just dangerous really, because it's slipping so much. But now the weather is starting to get a little better, so the track is starting to dry up just a little bit. If you look over there, you can see a few dry patches on the track. So that's what I'm hoping. Once the track dries out, I'll go out there for the 3rd session, and then hopefully, if the track is dry enough, I might be able to get some temperature in these tires, and then they're going to start gripping, and hopefully the car is going to be quite a bit faster than what it is right now. The 3rd session was what I would say was the best session of the whole track day, because the track was fairly dry at this point, and the tires were just starting to get some temperature in them, so they were starting to grip. The temperature was still really cold. It was like 6.5 degrees outside, so that's why it was really difficult putting heat in the tires, but still it was at the point where I could put the full power down finally. So like in 4th gear I could floor the car and the car would not spin the rear wheels at that point. Like it would accelerate like insane. And the acceleration was like absolutely something that I've never felt before. It was like the car accelerates in 4th gear like the E55 used to accelerate in 1st gear. Like it just keeps accelerating on and on. It seems like it would never stop. Now I wasn't pushing the car all the way down the straight because I was too afraid to push the car too much. I didn't want to go so fast and then not be able to stop in the first corner and then go off the track. So that's why I was only accelerating like till midway down the straight, and then I would lift off after that. Just because I wasn't even used to these types of speeds before, like hitting 200, 210 down the straight. That was really scary for me doing it in an open top car. But on this lap, finally the car was getting some temperature in the tires. The suspension was still not set up properly, so the G-forces were not as high as I saw in Laguna Seca. Like, according to the telemetry, I was only reaching 1.1 G around these corners. But later in the next video, what you'll see is that the car was cornering actually quite a lot more faster than even this one. So now I finally thought that I'm putting some temperature in the tires. Maybe I'll heat the tires up and go for a few hot laps, but before I could go with any of that, I got black flagged. Now that's the thing that I hate about these track days, that like you do anything even close to dangerous, you get black flagged for no reason at all. You slide the car too much, you get black flagged. You overtake someone without a point by, you get black flagged. Literally anything. You cut a corner too much, you get a black flag. So that's the really lame thing about these track days, that you can't really push the car too much. Because anything they consider dangerous, they'll just give you a black flag on it. So yeah, the only session where I thought I could set a good lap, I got black flagged on it and I couldn't even finish the lap. I had to come back in the pits. After this, the 4th session was a really tricky one because the rain had just started to pick up again, and the racing line on the track was dry because obviously cars were moving over that thing usually remains dry, but all other parts of the track were fairly wet. So these conditions are really tricky because you have to keep the car right on the racing line. Even if one wheel slides off and goes in the wet, it usually pulls the whole car towards the wet, and then you have no control at all, and you just slide off the track with no control, and that could be really dangerous. So in this session I did do 2 laps, but right after that I had a bit of an issue with the splitter. I had not tightened one of the cables on the splitter properly, which is why the cable, it just had a lot of slack in it, and it went down so much that it finally broke one of the bolting points of the splitter. where the splitter was bolted to the chassis, and after that the splitter just started scraping the ground, and I could literally hear the scraping from inside the car. That's why I had to pull into the pits and look at what was going on with the splitter. I've already ran into my first problem, which is actually not such a big problem, but this piece of carbon fiber actually was one of the bolting points for the splitter. And I was going down the street, and after like, I don't know how fast I was going, it was 4th gear and pretty close to max RPM, so it should be pretty quick by that speed. I think probably over 200 kilometers per hour, but anyways, yeah, that ripped the whole part of this thing away. Now this thing is actually under quite a lot of pressure because we have these 2 wooden things on the side. This is all temporary, by the way. The final thing is not done right now. That's why we added these temporary wooden things over here, so that the air would go inside here and basically come out of the radiators, and that helps with cooling. It is really effective for cooling, actually. The temperatures and everything are staying well within the range, but it's just that all that extra pressure that built up, it messed up this carbon fiber, which is not supposed to happen. Next time I make it, I'll definitely make it stronger, but the thing I want to do for now is that I want to just cut up another piece of wood and like put the whole piece of wood underneath here so that I can actually go for my last sessions. Okay, so after 4 sessions, I've decided to call it a day because of, well, mainly that splitter issue, because the splitter is broken. I can fix it, but then the thing is that the weather is still crappy and there's not much point of doing anything, so that's why, yeah, I decided not to go for the last session. We're just gonna fix up the splitter for Laguna Seca that's coming up in 2 days. That's really the thing that I want to get everything fixed for. So yeah, not really a really positive track day today. I didn't even get any lap times in, but at least I know what I need to work on from now, and let's hope that things are a lot better when I get to Laguna Seca. Yeah. You want to say anything?
Oh, I thought I was making noise here with this paper.
Oh, that's fine.
How are you? I'm still cold.
So that's going to be everything for this video, but definitely try to stay tuned for the next video, because that was an amazing track day at one of my favorite tracks, Laguna Seca. In perfectly dry weather, amazing conditions, finally. And I got quite a lot of work done on that track day, like setting up the suspension, monitoring tire temperatures, going through all the values, like checking all the temperatures, making sure everything was normal, and the car also performed quite well in the places where I got to push the car. But anyways, yeah, that's all that is going to be coming in the next video. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you guys really soon in the next one.
Perform as well of a drift as you can.
But I'll have no tires left for Laguna Seca then.
Well, I would not kill it all the way to the end.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I wouldn't also just like